Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Good day again, St. Lucia, and welcome to the program Agriculture on the Move. My name is Phillip Sydney, your host. Today with me are two guests, very important guests in the Ministry or the Department of Agriculture, to be exact. To my immediate right is Mr. Eden Compton, who is the officer responsible for special projects in the ministry. And next to him is our permanent secretary, Mr. John Calixte, who is responsible for the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, and also cooperatives. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Sydney.
Thank you, Mr. Sydney.
Today, gentlemen, we are discussing three entities, their functions, and of course, the way forward. The first, I remember out of many projects that were conceptualized by the Honorable Minister, Mr. Ezekiel Joseph, as Minister for Agriculture. One of those were the establishment of the Fonwaso Agro Processing Plant. He had his reason for that. There was a mandate. That foresight to me was a very good foresight because we saw a lot coming out of that plant. Mr. Compton, I know you have some background on that plant. You were DES at the time, I think, when that project was established. Could you give us a background into the establishment and the MO of that plant?
Yes, Mr. Sydney. Thanks a lot for inviting me on the program. You see, one identified approach for capturing a large share of the consumer food dollar for agribusiness entrepreneurs is through the facilitation of value-added agriculture. And this was established then. You have to understand that a lot of our farmers are involved in primary production. We have been involved in primary production for decades. And not a lot, but some of the commodities that we export, we import as processed products. And we can use cocoa as an example. We export cocoa, yes, but we also import the processed product. We import quite a bit of chocolate. We import cocoa as powdered cocoa for tea. We import cocoa-based lotions, for example, and the list goes on. A lot of these products can be made right here in St. Lucia. But unfortunately, the agro-processing subsector is dominated by a few medium and large producers. And the majority of the producers are micro-entrepreneurs, the small ones. And they lack the capacity to bring their business from one level to the next. And they're also plagued with a lot of problems such as poor packaging, poor labeling, inconsistencies regarding quality from batch to batch, and a lot of issues. And because of all of these issues, it was felt then that we should move ahead and try to establish agro-processing facilities on the island to assist these micro-entrepreneurs. And it was then that Honorable Ezekiel Joseph, of course there was the boxing plant at Fonwaso, and not being utilized at the time. And he came up with this brilliant idea of transforming the structure, retrofitting it into an agro-processing facility, which he did. And the facility was established in 2011 with the assistance from the Taiwanese. Fonwaso did very well. I think it was a learning curve. It was a developmental process, simply because they were involved in the production of vacuum-packed tree crops, fruit crops, root crops. I remember breadfruits, yams, dasheen, plantains, etc. They were involved in the production of a variety of juices, a variety of fruit pulps. They were also involved in the production of paper using the banana pseudostem. So it was a learning curve. It was a developmental process. But at the end of the day, the whole idea of establishing FOASO was also for the private sector to eventually take over. Because you have to understand the ministry has quite a responsibility in terms of a number of facilities, a list of, and agricultural development, for it to move forward, there has to be private sector involvement. So the whole idea was at some point, along the way it was recognized that there was need to retrofit and refurbish FOASO. Fortunately, under the Banana Accompanying Measures Program, there's a component, the Agri-Enterprise Facilitation, funded by the EU, and 4 agro-processing facilities were identified to be retrofitted and refurbished. So FOASO was definitely one of them. When FOASO was refurbished, all the processing was placed on the lower floor for food safety reasons, so that you could get that flow based on food safety requirements, and the administrative activities were brought on the up on the first floor. And that in itself, and in addition, equipment was procured for FOASO. So that in itself caught the eye of investors, and we got a proposal from some investors, 4 St. Lucian investors and 1 Taiwanese investor. So they've agreed to come together as a joint venture to invest and manage FOASO. So a lot of discussion we've carried out with them, and hopefully we can move forward. We are in the process of finalizing the lease agreement. And once this is signed, they can proceed. One advantage there is Taiwan is very much advanced as far as agro-processing is concerned. They manufacture a lot of the agro-processing equipment. So there's a lot to learn from Taiwan. Secondly, the investors agreed that they will go ahead and employ the workers who are already at the facility, because they've been exposed and they've learned, and there's still more to learn. Thirdly, the ministry promised the rural women of Babono, the Babono cluster for the St. Lucia Network of Rural Women. There's also an Azure cluster. The ministry promised them space at the facility to carry out the agro-processing activities, because currently they operate at the cottage level from their homes. And for food safety reasons, that's not the best. So if we can bring them together in one space, they can carry out all their processing activities. So the investors have agreed to make space available for them. So the ministry has proceeded now to bring in a food safety specialist and an architect to design that space for them, again based on food safety requirements, taking into consideration that there's need for storage space and all of that. So all in all, I think it's a brilliant investment, and it's an opportunity for the growth and development of the agro-processing subsector in St. Lucia.
Great. Yeah. Mr. P.S., you came in long after this was established.
That's right.
But now you're in the mainstream of what's happening. And what's your take on the way forward with the new entity and on your involvement as PS?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sydney, and good morning, and thank you for again inviting me to your program. I'm very excited with this new investment at the FOASO Agro Processing Center. As Mr. Compton explained earlier, it was always the intention of the ministry to invite private sector involvement. So when we received the proposal from the joint venture company, we immediately began discussing the advantages to this investment. For one, they're going to be bringing a new technology into FOASO. They're going to be doing some expansion to the center. They're going to be keeping the workers. The rural women are also going to be part of that facility. And very important too, they're also going to be looking at the exports of whatever is being produced at FOASO. And if you're adding value, as Mr. Compton pointed out, we've been doing primary production for quite a while. So adding value and exporting, be very, is critical to St. Lucia's development. Further, this gives us an opportunity to strengthen the agro-tourism linkages,
Yes.
you know, with the condiments that are going to be, you know, produced at the center. And not only that, we can use some of the farms in the area where visitors, both local and you know, visitors coming to the country, can actually see, you know, how whatever fruits that are being used at the center, the raw state, and how they are processed, and you know what the final product that comes out. So it will be a learning experience for, you know, families, for kids at school, and visitors who come into St. Lucia. And there'll be a smooth flow from the farm, have a viewing center at Foasaw, and on the grounds of the facility, you can actually see the final product, where you may be able to sample or purchase, you know, at the center. If not at the center, then at some of the shops in St. Lucia, maybe Point Surfing, and wherever else there'll be outlets.
Hold that point there with you for our first break. You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon.
What is biodiversity?
When you look at biodiversity, it's all around.
I think of biological and I think of diversity.
What is biosafety?
Safety measures for our foods, our products, etc.
Biodiversity is the variety of life. Biosafety, on the other hand, involves the management of products of biotechnology, such as GMOs and LMOs. Biosafety seeks to protect St. Lucia's biodiversity. The terms biodiversity and biosafety are not interchangeable. Get familiar with these terms. Observe the biodiversity around you, the changing environment of food production and sustainable growth. Do your part. Visit our websites and stay tuned to this station for more information on the National Biosafety Framework.
Welcome back to the program. P.S. I'm a bit excited about that project and the angle it has taken, because if you look at from a community standpoint, it means the community can be part and parcel of that project. The agritourism angle, and like I said earlier on, the sky rides, they can maybe include that in the package that they're selling to visitors coming on board. What do you think?
It's a very good idea, Mr. Sydney, and I think that is the thinking of the investors, to have an integrated tour in the Barbano area. So you can do the tour of the farm, do the tour of the facility, and then go on to the sky ride. So you have a real linkage with the agricultural sector and the tourism sector, which is what we're also trying to, you know, improve within the ministry. How do we improve, you know, agro-tourism linkages? So we see this not only as improving the agro-processing sector, but also improving and integrating the agro-tourism linkages, you know, between the two sectors.
How do you see the schools in the area getting involved in this? Because there needs to be some continuum, and the second part of it is, since it's a PPP, I mean, I don't think government still wants to have some hold in the project. And can you give us a reason why you think government should be on board, you know, together with the investors, the private investors?
Yes, it's necessary that the Ministry of Agriculture is involved, also to provide some direction. You can't leave it all to the investors, because you have the farmers involved, and you have the agro-processors involved also, and there has to be some sort of direction. You must have an agency to negotiate on their behalf when necessary. So it's absolutely necessary that there has to be some involvement by the Ministry of Agriculture.
And the schools, how do you see the schools participating in this?
Yeah, the schools can actually participate. One, the facility can be involved in producing, you know, juices and fruit pulps for the schools. You can also have the school feeding program, and also, in addition, you can have the schools visiting, so that the students now can familiarize themselves with what is required to be involved in agro-processing activities. It's absolutely necessary, because a lot of our young students are not exposed. So that sort of exposure is necessary.
Yeah, and to me, it gives an opportunity for farmers now, knowing the demand for the raw material. Then they will expand on the acreages and increase production in that regard.
And there can be contractual agreements.
Correct. Yes.
With the farmers, particularly for fruits, And you know our fruits are very seasonal, mangoes, etc.
Right.
And you know, so there can be some arrangement with the farmers, and they too can benefit, because a lot of our fruits go to waste anyway.
Oh yes, that's another thing.
I mean, one of the things the farmers want to know is if I produce, can I market or sell my product? So with the FOASO, the processing center, there will be a definitive market, so the farmers will know what quantum of produce will be required, so therefore they can produce to that quantum, you know, all the time.
Yes.
So I think it's an excellent opportunity for the farmers to already participate, farmers in the area, not just in the area, but you know, throughout the country, to participate in this venture. I'm happy you brought up the school feeding program. We also speak about the health of our students by including on the menu for the students, you know, local juices and products. That's certainly going to help them to, you know, improve the health of our students and health of the population as well. So, you know, when you look at it all overall, it's a win-win situation for, you know, everybody involved in the process and in the facility.
And the way forward to, I mean, right now the FOASO is producing, but I would say limited produce, really. With the new entity, I think they're looking at export and other opportunities.
Yes.
That leaves an opening for more employment and also training of your existing employees that you have there. What is it?
Again, you're very correct, Mr. Sydney. As Mr. Compton pointed out, the current staff at the facility will be retained. And the opportunities for another 53 or 54 new employees to be employed at the facility. I mean, doing additional jobs like accounting, other officers required for the plant itself. You're going to be expanding your production. You require new officers to work at the plant. So people doing some of the tour guides and stuff. So there's, again, numerous opportunities for, you know, new people to be engaged at the facility. And again, we're very excited, you know, about the whole plan and product that is being offered at FOASO.
So there's no going to government for bill-offs?
No, the plan is supposed to be self-sufficient. And I think with the range of activities that it is going to be engaged in, it should be able to generate the revenues to sustain its operations.
But I also think FOASO is going to be a model.
Yes.
Because don't forget that we are also retrofitting and refurbishing other facilities due to be completed pretty soon. Pretty soon. The rural women of Mikud, for example, their facility will soon be completed. So they can use FOASO as their model, and they're going to be managing the facility. The one for cocoa processing, and also the Lakai facility for honey processing. So if it works out for FOASO, then obviously, you know, they will use FOASO as a model.
And the thing about it too, I don't know, I mean, going back in recent times, any government-owned entity run by government, for some reason, it never works out. The saying is bagay gouvernement, so people are lackadaisical in doing what they're supposed to do, and then they still go back to government for bill-offs. And that takes me straight into marketing board and the Fish Marketing Corporation. I mean, I don't want to rehash. Senator knows what's happening with marketing board. Over the years, marketing board is 50 years. Yeah, fish marketing, they have the same MO as marketing board. You know, their social activities. They have a social responsibility. You know, they help the farmer, they help the fisher. But you will hear the fishers cannot get monies on time. 6 months can get the monies. What's the situation? Because I know for the way forward is a new entity. Piers, tell us about it.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Sydney. I think the entire St. Lucian public is aware of the problems facing the marketing board and Fish Marketing Corporation. So earlier this year, the ministry put in place a small committee to look into restructuring both entities. And we heard recently that the minister has announced that the government has agreed to have a public-private partnership arrangement between the government and a joint venture of companies, you know, to own and manage the entity. So that is the way forward. Right now, we are working towards determining how that arrangement is going to work, and to decide as to exactly what the new mandate of the entity is going to be, how it's going to operate, to ensure that some of the problems that we faced before do not reoccur. We are very mindful of those problems. There are several studies that were done that highlighted what the problems were and the challenges faced. So We have looked at all of the challenges and the problems, and in the operation of the new entity, we want to ensure that these challenges and problems will be addressed.
Because going back, I remember, I'm sure Mr. Compton can remember, there were, as you mentioned, a number of studies. I remember at one time with Marketing Board, they wanted to get the farm organizations to take over Marketing Board, all right? But for some reason, none of these things never came to fruition, you know, and Marketing Board still has that problem every time. They're not self-sustained. And one of the things, I mean, if you're running a private business and you're not making money, I mean, you will not stay in business. So either you shut down, right, or you reconstruct, and then you move on with maybe financing and look at new arrangements. But then government has a social responsibility towards farmers, because they need to protect the small farmer, because I mean, that's the backbone of the country. So, but then we need to move forward. We cannot continue to go to government, to Minister of Finance, so bill off every time. And then it makes the ministry looks bad, because the media takes it, it runs with it, and of course they don't know exactly what's happening. Before you answer, we'll do for a second break. We'll come back to this. Okay. Stay tuned.
When you're out at sea, there are no service stations along the way or supermarkets for a quick stop if you need something. It is essential that everything you will need while at sea is on the boat before you leave. That's why pre-sea checks are so important. Checks should be carried out by more than one person to ensure that all essentials are on board.
Everything on board? Yeah, everything here. Still sure. Yeah, podcast with that, same boy.
Pre-sea checks should include food stores, extra water and fuel, navigational equipment, safety gear, and communication equipment.
Okay, lighthouse, that's what I'm doing.
Before heading out to sea, always ensure that all equipment is in working order, you are stocked up on food and also extra fuel. Call the lighthouse to inform them of your voyage plan and inform someone responsible of your departure time and estimate the time of arrival back on shore. For more information on obtaining a license to fish, contact the Department of Fisheries at 468-4143.
Welcome back to the program. Mr. P.S., okay, moving forward, okay, we agree that the two entities cannot operate the way they're operating now. I mean, that's a no-no. I mean, like I said, we cannot continue going to government for bill-offs. I mean, that's out of the question. Monies right now is difficult to come by. It's difficult for governments to get finance, to finance other things, far less to finance, you know, entities like this that's supposed to be making money, you know, from the beginning, but they're not able for some reason or the other. How, because the idea is to form a new entity to take on both Marketing Board and Fish Marketing Corporation. How is this going to work?
Okay, first of all, we have to look at the ownership of the new entity. So we envisage that the government will be involved in the ownership, but we also want to include the farmers, fishers organizations, and also the private sector. So in terms of the ownership, you have the government having a joint venture arrangement with the farmers organization, the fishers organizations, and the private sector organizations like SLHDA, the hoteliers. So that's one tier of ownership. Then we look at the operations of the entity. The operations, we were hoping that we can bring in professionals to manage the entity. So professional managers, accountants, you know, etc. One of the things we also want to do is to look at an amalgamation of the administration of the two entities. So things like human resource management, your accounting staff, your ordinary clerical staff of the two entities can be merged into one. So you have one CEO, one human resource manager responsible for you know, recruiting staff for the two entities, one accounts department for the two entities, one marketing department for the two entities. But the specific operation of the two entities will remain separate. So the marketing board will have its own operations together with the Fish Marketing Corporation. One of the things that we also want to do is to encourage farmers and the fishers to patronize, to supply the entity. Because the only way we believe that the entity is going to survive is if you have the farmers and fishers supplying the entity, and the hoteliers and the consumers buying from the entity. So you must encourage the farmers or provide incentives for them to be part of the entity. So we're looking at things like probably insurances for farmers and fishers, pensions, trying to ensure that they have contracts, ensuring that they can schedule their production. Because one of the things that the entity is also going to be involved in is what we call market intelligence. The entity is supposed to be able to determine the demand for commodities all throughout the year based on information coming from the hoteliers and the consumers. And that information is passed on to the farmers and ensure that by scheduling their production, they can meet, maybe not all, but at least some of the demand that is going to be required. They should be able to provide the pricing. So you can tell the hoteliers, look, this week, the price of cucumbers is going to be Y cents per pound. But also tell the farmers, we'll be paying you X cents per pound in terms of purchasing the cucumbers. We also want to introduce standards to the market. So again, and grade the commodities that are being sold to the marketing board or from the fish marketing standpoint. So if you supply A-grade fruit or fish, then we're going to pay the supplier, the fishermen and the farmers, A-grade price for that product. If you supply B or C grade, then we pay you B or C grade. So what is clear is that there's transparency in the pricing of the product or the commodities, so that everybody's aware. There's the market knowledge of what is being sold, the price that's being sold, and the price that you're going to purchase the product. Again, you want to encourage the farmers to patronize. So you have one entity where maybe you want to call it a clearinghouse, where the supplies come into that entity, and the entity then acts as a marketing body to the hoteliers and the private and to the consumers, where it is now sold to these entities.
How are you going to ensure that the farmers does not bypass the entity and go straight to the supermarkets and the hotels? Because that's one of the problems that they're faced with right now.
Well, one of the things is to ensure that the supermarkets or the hotels are part of the entity.
Okay.
So if they're part of the entity, they can say, look, okay, farmers and fishers, we would like to purchase. It's a new arrangement directly from the entity, so you can supply your products to the entity. We purchase from the entity.
Okay.
There will be other arrangements. I'm sure there will be people who will have their own separate arrangements. We cannot stop everybody from selling to the entity. That will probably continue. But by far and large, you would like the majority of the farmers to be selling through the entity to supply the consumers and the hoteliers.
How soon will this arrangement come on stream?
I mean, it's difficult to put a time frame because we have to get a cabinet approval, although they have approved the joint venture, but in terms of the operations and how things are going to operate and how we bring people together, that has to also be approved by cabinet. But then you also need to wind down the operations of the two entities to create a new entity. So that's going to take some time because we have a private sector body, the Fish Marketing Corporation, and the statutory corporation, which is the Central Marketing Board. And because they're two different entities, the way they wind down is going to be different. So it's difficult to put a time frame, but I imagine by next year for sure, we should have the new entity up and functional and ready to do business.
And for staffing, jobs are going to be maintained? For
staffing, I mean, I can see there because you have a new entity, there will be new jobs being created. Yes, that's right. But I can see when the entity is fully operational, because we're going to be doing, again, value added for the fish market, for Central Marketing Board, and also value added for fish marketing. So I see there will be increased jobs or increased opportunities for jobs with the entity. But there'll be new jobs, and as I said, more professionals will be employed, with the entity.
Gentlemen, we have exhausted already. The time has come for we have to end the program. I want to thank you all for being here. And I hope Mr. Compton and the PS for the way forward. The joint ventureship will be rooted, and of course we will see results in both entities working on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us, Mr. Sydney.
You've been watching Agriculture on the Move. I want to thank you, the viewers, for viewing the program, and continue to do so on a regular basis as you bring you information from the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and, of course, cooperatives and natural resources. So take care, and I'm Phillip Sydney saying goodbye, and see you again next time.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.